Hi, Lisa Figueroa here, board certified criminal defense attorney in Florida, here to talk to you about the Rob and Michelle Reiner case. Tragically, if you haven't heard already, they were killed recently in their Brentwood, California home. Rob Reiner was an Oscar-winning director, producer, the genius behind several classic films like Stand By Me, When Harry Met Sally, and one of my personal favorites, A Few Good Men. The cause of death that's been released and publicized has been multiple stab wounds, alleged to have been inflicted by his own son. Their 32-year-old son, Nick Reiner, was charged and arrested for 2 counts of first-degree murder. Their daughter, Romy, was the one that found them in their Brentwood home and called a close friend, which you'll hear was Billy Crystal, the famous actor that we've heard of, and they responded to the scene. A gruesome, gruesome scene from what's been told. The police quickly focused on Nick, who had a history of addiction, multiple stints in various rehabs, and also recently they apparently had gone to a party at Conan O'Brien's house where people later reportedly said that he was acting erratic, asking odd questions to the people that were guests there. And then police continued to investigate. You'll see there's various surveillance footage of some of the things that he did afterwards, but he was ultimately apprehended and arrested and recently appeared in court for his first arraignment. Let's see what happened at court the first time his attorney appears on his behalf.
The arraignment, I want to plead this juncture, it's too early. We've coordinated with counsel from the DA's office, and January 7th, with the court's permission, will be a convenient date for us to come back for potential arraignment.
Thank you. At this time, we'll take a waiver, speedy arraignment waiver from your client.
Thank you.
Mr. Reiner, you have a constitutional and statutory right to a speedy arraignment. Your counsel is requesting that your arraignment be continued to January 7, 2026. Do you waive your right to a speedy arraignment so that your arraignment can be heard on January 7, 2026? And does counsel join in the waiver?
I join, Your Honor.
The court finds that the defendant has made a knowing and intelligent waiver of his right to a speedy arraignment, and that is counsel joins in that waiver. Letter set January 7, 2026 for arraignment in this department. Bail to stand at no bail. Anything further on the case?
Not by the defense, Your Honor.
Anything further?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Now, it's interesting, California has this 48-hour rule for arraignment, a speedy arraignment, and his attorney appeared in court and asked for that to be continued. That is not surprising given the nature of this case. Nothing substantive happened, meaning no evidence was presented, but a person in California is entitled to appear before the court, hear formally what the charges are, and address possibly any bond release conditions at the time of that arraignment, but that was postponed. It's been rescheduled for January 7th. In Florida, we don't have a 48-hour rule, but we do have a first appearance, which is very similar to this process that they have in California. In Florida, you have 24 hours to be presented before a judge on the charges. And then this right here is Nick Reiner's attorney speaking to the press about what just transpired in court.
Let's take a listen in.
I just have a couple of quick words. First of all, and most importantly, this is a devastating tragedy that has befallen the Reiner family. We all recognize that. Our hearts go out to the entire Reiner family. There are very, very complex and serious issues that are associated with this case. Those need to be thoroughly but very carefully dealt with and examined and looked at and analyzed. We ask that during this process you allow the system to move forward in the way that it was designed to move forward. Not with a rush to judgment, not with jumping to conclusions, but with restraint and with dignity and with the respect that this system and this process deserves and that the family deserves. So with that, we are set for January 7th for an arraignment. That's the next court date. And that's all I have to say at this point. There may be more at some other point, but today we're going to rest on where we stand procedurally, which is this was a continuance of arraignment. Nothing happened today substantively. We'll be back for an arraignment in the same department on the 7th of January. We'll see you then.
Why did you delay it? Why did you delay it? Why did you want to?
So that was Nick Reiner's attorney speaking to the press about the case, essentially telling them not to rush to judgment, understanding how serious and tragic the situation is, but that there's going to be more information forthcoming, and asking the people to be respectful of the family and everyone involved, and that nothing really happened substantively that day, meaning nothing meaningful other than we're going to come back on January 7th and address the case further. It's not odd that it got delayed. A lot of the reporters were asking why did it get delayed? I fully would think that an attorney, given everything that's involved and the high media frenzy, they would want to continue it to have additional time to either speak to the prosecution, because really what's going to get addressed at the arraignment or any type of first appearance is the issue about bail or conditions. And they're going to have to figure out what the strategy is and how soon are they going to start pushing forward any kind of theory of defense, or are we going to stay silent? So there's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes before they come out with whatever the game plan is moving forward. So with a case like this, the reports are that these two individuals, Rob and Michelle Reiner, were found stabbed to death in their own home, and that Nick Reiner lived in the home with them. By all accounts, it seems that the evidence is pointing to Nick Reiner. And so what type of defenses are available for someone in that situation? Normally, anytime there's a murder case, it's either the person didn't do it and someone else did, or self-defense, which seems very unlikely that that would be the case. And even self-defense, we've talked about before, it can't be disproportionate. So apparently there's like lots of stab wounds. This isn't just one time, one defensive wound. Then the other thing that we've been hearing a lot of talk about is possible diagnosis of schizophrenia, any kind of mental health disorder that may have impacted this. And what does that mean? Now, a lot of times people hear not guilty by reason of insanity. Does that mean that if you meet that threshold that your case gets dismissed? Well, no. In fact, if someone is found not guilty, at least in Florida, by reason of insanity, that simply means that they're going to be committed to a civil, like a mental institution. They don't just get to go home and the case is over in that sense. So it's not how everyone thinks. And those cases are really difficult to prove. So then another thing they might be looking at is competency. Is he competent to stand trial? So those things are going to be explored. And then ultimately, if the evidence is clear, if they are competent to stand trial, then the issue will become what mitigating factors? What were the circumstances behind the state of mind? Is there anything that would allow them to consider, the prosecution to consider some sort of resolution short of whatever the maximum sentence or the only sentence anytime there is a first degree or premeditated murder? So all of those things are going to be explored, and there's a lot that is still unknown, even though there is so much that's being reported. So as the attorney indicated, it's really important just not to rush to judgment and to be patient with the process and see how things play out. And with the not rushing to judgment, we don't know the backstory. And again, you've probably heard of the Menendez brothers, who they did a whole Netflix series on their trial and the alleged trauma and abuse that happened. And I'm not saying that that was what happened here, but the point is that we don't know the full picture. And because of that, that's why they're saying don't rush to judgment. Let's hear the whole story before you make a decision in the case. And ultimately, that's what the prosecutors will have to do, and maybe even a jury down the road. As this case unfolds procedurally, we'll be back to talk about some of those nuances as it comes up, or if anything comes out that's unexpected. It's also noteworthy that this is sadly not uncommon. I recently heard about a case that's set to go to trial next month, a young girl in Georgia who was accused of killing her parents. But because of the fact that who the individuals were that are deceased, right? When you have affluent people or famous people that are killed, obviously it's going to get a lot more of attention. However, this is sadly going on even in Central Florida. We've recently had cases similarly, and it just goes to show that mental health and addiction can impact someone's entire life, regardless of what class or economic background you come from. Hopefully there will be a new level of awareness and sensitivity to these issues, while at the same time not excusing behavior that is unacceptable. So we'll keep following this and other stories. Thanks again for watching. Take care.